What if the difference between scraping by month after month, always one unexpected bill away from disaster, and finally stepping into the kind of financial freedom that lets you wake up without that constant knot of worry in your stomach, wasn't about landing some six-figure salary or winning the lottery? What if it came down to four simple percentages that divide every single dollar you earn in a way that actually builds lasting wealth instead of just cycling it through your hands and out the door? Picture this for a moment. You're 18 years old, fresh out of high school, eager to prove yourself in the world. You land your first real job, but there's one big problem. You need reliable transportation to get there every single day. No savings to speak of, no family safety net ready to catch you. So like so many young people do, you walk into a dealership or log onto a financing website and you sign on the dotted line for a loan. The excitement hits hard. You drive off the lot in that shiny little car, maybe even splurge on a new stereo system with the extra cash the bank approved. Because hey, you deserve it, right? For those first few glorious months, life feels like it's finally on the upswing. You're independent. You're moving forward. The future looks bright. Then, one ordinary morning on your way to work, the engine starts making a strange noise. It gets louder. Steam or smoke starts pouring out. The car dies right there on the side of the road. Suddenly, that sense of freedom evaporates. You're stranded. The repair quote comes back in the thousands. Way more than you have. If you can't get it fixed, you lose the job. So what do? You borrow more money, piling debt on top of debt, stress on top of stress. That one mechanical failure doesn't just break your car. It breaks your momentum, sets your entire financial life back by a full year or more, and leaves scars that make you question every money decision for a long time afterward. That story isn't made up. It's the kind of quiet tragedy that plays out for millions of people every single year. And it highlights a brutal truth about money that most financial advice completely misses. The richest people on the planet aren't rich because they magically earn more than everyone else. Statistics show that the top 1% are overwhelmingly entrepreneurs who own businesses, investors who own assets, inheritors who own trusts, or individuals with rare, high-value skills. Almost none of them got there by simply trading hours for dollars in a traditional job and hoping the paycheck stretches far enough. They understand something fundamental. If you don't own something that can grow and generate income for you, then you are the one being owned. By bills, by lifestyle expectations, by the constant pressure of the next payment. The system is built that way on purpose. It keeps you consuming, keeps you working harder just to maintain the status quo, and leaves very little room for true independence. But there is a way out. A proven, repeatable system that works whether you're earning $30,000 a year or $300,000. It's called the 25-15-50-10 rule, and it's designed to force your money into four powerful buckets that protect you, grow your wealth, keep your daily life sustainable, and even allow room for enjoyment so you don't burn out and quit. I'm going to walk you through every single piece of this rule in detail, with real stories, practical calculations, common pitfalls to avoid, and step-by-step instructions you can implement starting with your very next paycheck. By the end of this, you'll have a complete blueprint that turns ordinary income into extraordinary freedom over time. And the best part? It doesn't require perfection or a finance degree. It just requires consistency and the willingness to start owning your financial future instead of letting it own you. Let's begin with the foundation that separates those who build empires from those who stay trapped in the cycle, the 25% allocated to growth. This 25% is the portion of your income that you commit to buying assets, things that have the potential to increase in value over time and eventually put money back into your pocket even while you sleep, eat, or spend time with family. It's not about chasing get-rich-quick schemes or risky day trading. It's about putting your money to work in vehicles that historically reward patience and compound over the years. Think index funds that track broad markets like the S&P 500, real estate investment trusts that let you own shares in properties without being a landlord, or even starting small side businesses that can scale. Why this percentage first? Because most people do the opposite. They get paid, they cover the immediate bills that scream the loudest, and then whatever is left gets spent on things that provide a quick hit of pleasure but zero long-term return. Groceries turn into takeout wrappers in the trash. Clothes get worn a few times and forgotten. Gadgets lose value the moment you unpack them. Over time, this creates a life where you own almost nothing of real worth, and your net worth stays flat or even declines when inflation is factored in. It's exhausting, it's demoralizing, and it's exactly why so many hardworking people feel stuck no matter how many raises they get. The system benefits from this cycle. It keeps the economy spinning on consumer spending, but it leaves individuals with very little breathing room or leverage. Once you see it for what it is, a form of modern financial servitude disguised as normal life, you can start fighting back intelligently. By directing that first 25% straight into growth assets before anything else touches it, you flip the script. Your money starts serving you. To really drive home why this matters so much, consider the story of two ordinary guys named Billy and Phil. Billy decided at age 20 that he was going to start small but consistent. Every month, without fail, he put $200 into a diversified index fund tracking the market. He didn't have a high-paying job. He wasn't living at home with zero expenses. He was just disciplined. Phil, on the other hand, figured he had time. He waited until he turned 30 before getting serious. To make up for the lost decade, Phil invested $300 a month, 50% more than Billy. Both men continued this habit until they reached age 60, at which point they stopped adding new money and simply let the portfolios grow. Now let's look at the raw numbers because they tell a story more powerful than any motivational speech. Over 40 years, Billy contributed a total of $96,000. Phil, over 30 years, contributed $108,000. On paper, Phil put in more money. So you would expect Phil to come out ahead, right? That's what most people assume when they delay starting. They think they can catch up by throwing larger amounts later. But here's where the magic and the harsh reality of compound growth comes in. Assuming a conservative average annual return of 10%, which matches the long-term historical performance of the S&P 500 over many decades, including dividends reinvested, Billy's portfolio would grow to approximately $1,264,816. Phil's, despite the higher monthly contributions, would reach only about $678,146. Billy invested $12,000 less overall, but ended up with nearly $600,000 more. That gap isn't because Billy was smarter about picking stocks. It's because time is the most powerful force in investing. Those extra 10 years allowed his money to compound, earning returns on returns, snowballing in a way that later starters simply cannot replicate, no matter how hard they try. Have you ever stopped to calculate what even small amounts can do when given enough time? Let's break it down further so you can see it in your own life. Suppose you're 25 years old right now, and you can only afford $100 a month toward growth. Over the next 40 years at that same 10% average, that grows to over $528,000. If you wait until 35, the same $100 a month for 30 years gets you to roughly $228,000. The 10-year delay costs you $300,000 in this scenario. It's not theoretical. This is math working against you or for you, depending on when you start. So how do you actually choose where to put that 25%? Start simple, especially if you're new to this. The lowest risk, highest probability path for beginners is broad market index funds. You're not trying to beat the market by picking individual winners, which even professionals struggle to do consistently. You're buying a small piece of the entire economy. When the market goes up over time, as it has for decades despite crashes and recessions, so does your money. Set it and forget it. Automate the contributions so you never see the money and never talk yourself out of it. As you get more comfortable or as your income grows, you can layer in other assets. Real estate through REITs is fantastic because it provides exposure to property, appreciation, and rental income without the headaches of being a direct landlord. No tenants calling at midnight about leaky faucets. No surprise repair bills eating your weekends. You can also explore dividend-paying stocks or even peer-to-peer lending platforms once you've built a foundation. The key is diversification. Don't put all 25% into one thing. Spread it across a few solid options so that if one area has a bad year, the others carry the load. A common mistake people make here is waiting for the perfect time or the perfect amount. They think they need thousands of dollars saved first, or that the market is too high right now. The truth is, there is never a perfect time. Markets fluctuate, but time in the market almost always beats timing the market. Start with whatever you can afford today, even if it's $50 a month. Increase it whenever you get a raise, or cut an unnecessary expense. The habit is more important than the initial dollar amount. Over years and decades, that consistency compounds into life-changing wealth. Think about what this 25% represents in practical terms for your future. It could mean the difference between working until you're 70 because you have to, versus retiring comfortably at 55 or earlier with enough passive income to cover your lifestyle. It could fund dream vacations without debt, pay for your kids' education without loans, or simply give you the freedom to say no to jobs or opportunities that don't align with your values. This bucket turns money from a source of stress into a tool for freedom. Now, growth is powerful, but it's not enough on its own. Life throws curveballs, and without protection, even the best investment portfolio can be forced into bad decisions. That brings us to the next 15%, the stability bucket that acts as your financial insurance policy. This 15% is what keeps you in the game when everything else tries to knock you out. It's your emergency fund, your margin for error, your peace of mind when the car breaks down, the roof leaks, medical bills arrive, or the job market shifts unexpectedly. Far too many people skip this entirely and pour everything into investments or spending, only to face a crisis that forces them to sell assets at the worst possible time or rack up high-interest debt. Let's go back to that 18-year-old story for a deeper look. After the engine failure and the additional borrowing, the stress wasn't just financial. It affected sleep, relationships, focus at work, and self-confidence. Months of anxiety followed, with every paycheck already spoken for before it arrived. The young man felt trapped, like he was running on a treadmill that kept speeding up. If he had built even a modest stability fund beforehand, say 3 to 5 months of basic living expenses, he could have covered the repair without new debt. He could have kept his job without panic. He could have maintained momentum instead of sliding backward. Most people don't have a pure money problem. They have a stability problem. One unexpected event, a health issue, car repair, home maintenance, or temporary job loss, and their entire financial house of cards collapses. Even those earning solid incomes can find themselves one bad month away from scrambling because they have no buffer. Statistics bear this out. A large percentage of households couldn't cover a surprise $1,000 expense without borrowing. That vulnerability keeps people stressed and prevents them from taking smart risks that could accelerate their wealth. Building this stability fund starts with clarity. Sit down and list your true core monthly expenses, the ones you cannot avoid even in a crisis. This includes rent or mortgage, groceries for basic nutritious meals, utilities like electricity and water, essential transportation such as gas or public transit, minimum insurance payments, and any work-related necessities like internet if it's required for your job. Do not include entertainment, dining out, subscriptions you could cancel, or lifestyle extras. Be honest and lean. Add those numbers up to get your monthly baseline. Then multiply that baseline by 5. That becomes your target stability fund amount. For example, if your bare-bones monthly essentials total $1,500, your goal is $7,500. 5 months gives you a real cushion, enough time to recover from most setbacks without desperation. Some experts recommend 3 months, but aiming higher makes you truly bulletproof, especially in today's uncertain world, where multiple things can go wrong at once. Where you store this money is just as critical as having it. It must be easy to access within 24 hours, no penalties or waiting periods. It must carry zero investment risk. This is not the place for stocks, crypto, or anything that can drop in value right when you need it most. And it must earn some interest to fight inflation, which quietly erodes purchasing power over time. High-yield savings accounts fit perfectly here. Many currently offer 4 to 5% or more, with full liquidity and government insurance up to certain limits. Shop around for the best rates, but prioritize safety and accessibility over chasing the absolute highest yield. To build this fund quickly, Use 3 proven tactics that layer on top of each other. First, the paycheck sweep. The moment your income hits your account, automatically transfer 15% into the stability bucket. Set it up once and let technology handle it. You'll adjust to living without that money very quickly, just like you adjust to any recurring bill. Second, the replacement promise. If you ever need to dip into the fund for a legitimate emergency, treat it like a loan to yourself. The very next paycheck, replenish exactly what you took out before you do anything else. This keeps the habit strong and prevents the fund from slowly draining over time. Third, the save by spending hack. Use apps that round up everyday purchases to the nearest dollar and deposit the change automatically. 40 cents here, 60 cents there. It adds up faster than you expect, and you barely notice it. Combine that with cashback credit cards paid off in full every month, directing all rewards straight to the fund. Small actions repeated consistently create massive results. Once your stability fund reaches the target, you have options. You can redirect future 15% contributions into growth assets to accelerate compounding, or you can maintain a portion of it and use the rest for the rewards bucket we'll discuss later. The important thing is that you now have a financial foundation that most people never build. You can weather storms, you can sleep better at night, and you can make bolder moves in your growth investments knowing there's a safety net underneath. With growth and stability handled, you're ready to tackle the largest slice, the 50% dedicated to essentials. This is where many high earners still struggle, living paycheck to paycheck despite impressive salaries because they confuse wants with needs and allow lifestyle creep to devour their progress. Essentials are the things that keep you alive, healthy, and functioning in society. Housing, nutritious food, basic utilities, reliable transportation, necessary insurance, and functional clothing. That's it. Everything beyond that falls into other buckets. The goal of capping this at 50% is to force discipline and prevent the slow bleed of unnecessary spending that keeps so many trapped. Consider another real-world contrast. 2 friends in their early 20s. One always looked the part of success. Latest designer clothes, expensive watch, frequent nights out, new gadgets. On the surface, he seemed to have it all together. His bank account told a different story. $43 and some overdue credit card balances. Stress was constant. The other friend dressed simply. Nothing flashy, basic reliable items. But behind the scenes, he had over $1,000 growing in investments and a solid start on his stability fund. He had learned from past mistakes and chose to build quietly rather than perform wealth. Which one was actually richer? The one whose money was working for him, of course. Wealth isn't Instagram posts or the approval of strangers. It's the freedom, security, and options that come from owning assets instead of liabilities. The flashy friend was owned by his image and his spending habits. The quiet one was starting to own his future. Lifestyle creep is sneaky. It starts with small, seemingly justified upgrades. I got a raise, so I deserve a nicer apartment closer to work. This car is safer and more reliable. We work hard, so eating out a few times a week is fine. Before long, your expenses rise to match or exceed your income, and you're right back where you started, or worse. Breaking this cycle requires intentional systems, not just willpower, which fades when you're tired or stressed. Begin by auditing your current spending ruthlessly. Go through the last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Categorize every expense. You'll likely be shocked at how much leaks out on subscriptions you forgot about, impulse buys, premium services you don't fully use, and small daily habits that add up. Cancel anything that isn't truly essential. Redirect that money consciously into your other buckets. Focus especially on the 2 biggest wealth killers for most people, housing and transportation. Housing often eats 30 to 50% of income all by itself. When your lease is up, negotiate hard. Landlords frequently prefer keeping good tenants over the hassle and cost of turnover. Even a small reduction or freeze can save thousands annually. Consider house hacking, renting out a spare room, sharing with roommates, or temporarily living with family while you accelerate your savings. If you can keep housing costs to half or less of your 50% essentials bucket, you free up tremendous room for everything else. Transportation follows the same logic. Brand new car leases or loans are one of the fastest ways to destroy wealth. Vehicles depreciate rapidly, and the payments plus insurance, fuel, and maintenance create a constant drain. Instead, buy a reliable used car that has already taken the biggest depreciation hit. Pay cash if possible or finance very conservatively. In walkable cities or areas with good public transit, consider ditching the car altogether. The savings can be life-changing, hundreds per month that can compound elsewhere. Once your big expenses are under control, handle everyday decisions with a proven framework that removes emotion. For any purchase that feels tempting but isn't clearly essential, ask yourself 3 questions in sequence. First, is this an impulse buy driven by a momentary urge? If yes, apply the 7-day rule. Wait a full week and see if you still want it. Most of the time, the desire fades and you realize it wasn't important. The excitement was temporary. If after 7 days you still want it, move to the second question. Are you buying the brand name and image or the actual value and utility? Wealthy people focus on value. Calculate cost per use. A well-made pair of boots that lasts for years and gets worn hundreds of times costs pennies per wear. Designer items worn twice become extremely expensive. Cheap junk that falls apart after one use is also a waste. Seek quality and durability without paying for marketing hype. Finally ask, will this genuinely improve my life in a meaningful way, or is it about impressing others, filling boredom, or chasing a quick dopamine hit? If it's intentional and adds real value, better health, productivity, family time, or long-term well-being, then it's worth considering within your budget. If not, let it go. Over time, running purchases through this filter becomes automatic. You make better decisions without feeling deprived because every dollar spent aligns with your bigger goals. Living on 50% for essentials doesn't mean a life of misery or deprivation. It means being smart. It means cooking nourishing meals at home more often, finding free or low-cost entertainment, shopping sales and secondhand for quality basics, and constantly asking whether an expense serves your future self. When you master this, your 50% feels abundant rather than restrictive, and the extra money flowing into growth and stability accelerates your journey toward freedom. Finally, we come to the often overlooked 10% reserve for rewards. This is the guilt-free fun money that keeps the entire system sustainable for the long haul. Money management isn't supposed to be a joyless grind of constant restriction. If it feels like punishment, you will eventually rebel against it, overspend dramatically, and undo months or years of progress. Research and real-life patterns show that around 92% of people who go on extreme saving sprints end up binge spending afterward because the deprivation becomes unbearable. The top 1% understand human psychology. They build in rewards deliberately so that discipline feels worthwhile. Think of this 10% as your financial cheat meal. It allows for nice dinners, hobbies, short trips, gifts, or whatever brings genuine joy and recharges your motivation without derailing the plan. The key is intentionality here too. This isn't an excuse to blow money recklessly. It's a budgeted allowance for experiences and items that remind you why you're building wealth in the first place. Maybe it funds a monthly date night that strengthens your relationship, or a class that develops a skill you love, or simply the freedom to treat yourself or others occasionally without guilt. These small joys prevent resentment and make the other buckets easier to maintain over decades. Balance is everything. Use this 10% mindfully. Track it separately if needed so it doesn't bleed into essentials. Over time, as your income grows from raises, side businesses, or investment returns, this bucket can expand naturally while the percentages stay proportional. The goal is a rich life, not just a large bank account. Putting it all together, the 25-15-50-10 rule creates a complete financial ecosystem. 25% builds your future through ownership and compounding. 15% protects your progress and gives you resilience. 50% keeps your daily life grounded and sustainable without excess. 10% keeps you human and motivated. No matter your current income level, you can start allocating this way immediately. Here's exactly how to implement it starting today. Open your banking app or set up automatic transfers. On payday, before you touch anything else, move 25% to your growth investments, whether that's a brokerage account with low-cost index funds or a robo-advisor. Next, shift 15% to your dedicated high-yield stability savings account. The remaining 50% covers your essentials. Use budgeting tools or envelopes if needed to stay disciplined. The final 10% goes into a separate rewards checking or cash account for fun. Review your allocations every few months. Adjust as your income changes or expenses drop. Track your net worth quarterly to see the progress. It's incredibly motivating to watch those numbers climb. If you slip up one month, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on track the next. Consistency over perfection is what wins. Imagine your life 5, 10, or 20 years from now under this system. Your growth assets have compounded into a substantial nest egg, generating passive income. Your stability fund has saved you from countless stressful situations. Your lifestyle is comfortable but intentional, free from the pressure of keeping up with others. You have room for joy, travel, family, and pursuing passions. You can retire earlier, work on your own terms, or simply enjoy peace of mind knowing you're not one crisis away from ruin. This isn't a fantasy reserved for the lucky or the already wealthy. It's the result of small, repeated choices aligned with a proven rule used by people who built real freedom. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. Take your next paycheck and divide it according to these percentages. Set up the automations. Watch what happens. Your future self, the one enjoying financial independence, lower stress, and more options, is already grateful you made this decision today. The rule works if you work it. Own your money instead of letting it own you. The path to wealth, like the 1%, is simpler than you've been led to believe. It starts right now with those 4 numbers: 25, 15, 50, and 10. Make the commitment, follow through, and prepare to be amazed at how quickly your financial life transforms when every dollar has a purposeful place. You've got this. The freedom you've been dreaming about is closer than it feels. Start today and keep going. The compound effect will take care of the rest.